Welcome to Loving Beyond the I Do podcast. This power couple is building stronger marriages one day at a time. Talking about real issues on love, relationships, and marriage longevity. Let's break down the barriers and engage in healthy conversation with your hosts, Jason and Tina Marie. Take a seat and buckle up because things are about to get real.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Loving Beyond the I Do podcast.
With your hosts, Jason and Tina Marie.
That's me. So this week we have a special guest with us. Who do we have with us this week, Jason?
Jason?
Come on, it's all right.
Christian de la Huerta.
All right.
Welcome to the show, Christian.
Welcome, Christian. How are you?
Hey, Tina Marie, Jason. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for being on this show. A great pleasure of ours. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, God, where to start?
I know, right?
That means he's done a lot. Okay.
Okay, give us the synopsis of it.
Yeah. So I was born in Cuba. I lived there for the first 10 years of my life, and then we came to the States. Initially lived in Georgia, which was a little... to say that it was hard for me, it's not even capturing what it was, because I didn't speak English. And, it was a small rural town with, I hate to use the word, but it was kind of rednecky, and they didn't take very kindly to foreigners.
Okay.
So, and I was pretty shy as a teenager, pretty introverted. And to the degree that, I was a good student, that I was. I had pretty much 4.0 in high school and college, except for 1B in high school, which is interesting and relates to what we're talking about today, because I didn't do this consciously then. But looking back on it, I know that I sabotaged unconsciously my grade point average, because at that point in my life, there is no way that I could have gotten up in front of a auditorium full of hundreds of people to deliver the valedictorian speech. Just no way. So flash forward now, and I've spoken all over the world. I'm a TEDx speaker. I've spoken at dozens of universities and conferences. So this process of personal empowerment that I write about and that I live, I know works. And that whatever it is, whatever traumas we had as kids growing up, all that stuff can be healed and all that stuff can be transcended.
Wonderful. So basically, it took you on a journey of self-discovery to realize what exactly you needed to heal and do to live the life that you wanted to have now.
Yeah, for sure.
And so what was the determining factor? So I know a lot of things happened over your lifespan, but usually there's that one
defining moment.
Defining moment that says there's something that I want, or I'm not having, or something brought it up.
I'm not taking this anymore.
What was that one defining moment that changed your entire life?
Well, I could think of a couple. The most recent one was I was approaching 30, like many of us, I kind of went through a questioning process and my life was very enviable then. I had a successful job, an apartment on the water in South Beach in Miami, where I was living at the time. Sought after socially, professionally. And yet it seemed to me that the more that I had, the more that there was something missing. And I just kept asking, there's got to be more to life. And I went through it. It threw me into this whole process of questioning what I really wanted from life. And as a result of which, I was led to this teacher that I studied with for 5 years. I did breathwork as a healing practice for the first time. And long story short, 9 months later, I quit my job, sold my condo, gave away most of my belongings or sold them, and I went off on a spiritual journey of self-discovery, and that was the last time I ever worked for anybody else.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so what did you find in that? What did you know what you were seeking? I know you say spiritual awareness, but we seek something deeper. So did you have an idea of what you were seeking, or you were just like, whatever's out there, I want to find it?
I think it was meaning. It was purpose.
Okay.
And I've always had a sense of mission. Even when I was a kid, I thought I wanted to be a priest, and eventually found out that the religion in which I was raised, which was Catholicism, didn't have room for me. So, that didn't work. But I still had that sense of service, of wanting to make a difference in real human lives, of wanting to serve God or the sacred, the divine, or however you want to talk about that. And so for me, it became, I realized that I had neglected that. And in some ways, I'd thrown out the baby with that baptismal water. And in rediscovering my own personal connection with the sacred, in a way that worked for me, in a way that was a match with who I am, that began that process of self-discovery and self-expression, and started searching, all over for teachings from the East, the deeper teachings of religions from the West, combined with my psychology background, and so weaving all of that into a body of work, which is what I've been teaching now for 30 years.
Did you find as you were going on this spiritual journey, did you see that your relationships were in a disarray or anything before you made this decision to do this? I mean, because you said your life was okay as it was.
Yeah, that's a really interesting. It's a really interesting pattern that I see for that. And so here's one example of that. I think I'd been in three relationships before I went on the spiritual journey. And there was a pattern, looking back on it, of me being cheated on.
Okay.
And so then I went into this 5-year spiritual journey of deep spiritual work, discovering who I am, and realized that I was teaching people and supporting people to live radically true lives, and that I wasn't being fully honest in relationship with my parents, arguably my most profound relationship in my life.
Right.
And what was going on is that I was out as a gay man to my siblings and to my close friends, but not my parents. And so in a way, it's like part of what I teach is that what's out there, it's also here.
Right.
If we want to do our relationships consciously, whatever they're doing that really bugs us, turn that mirror around, because in some way we're doing the same, right? It could look completely
right.
Yep.
Could look completely different, but in some way we're doing it. Because in a way, I was cheating my relationship with my parents by not being fully myself. Right? So
Right.
I was cheating too, in a whole different way.
Right.
So I came out to my parents. Flash forward, every single relationship, probably another 3 relationships that I've had since then, never, ever, ever was I cheated on again. There just wasn't an issue. So if we handle that stuff here, it's also handled in our relationship.
Right. What we have to understand is that all of the work begins inside. So we're actually projecting our life, and we wonder why our lives are people wonder why things are happening in their lives, and not realizing that it's taking place on the inside, and it's just projecting on the outside screen.
Exactly. And I've had other people, with whom I've worked, clients and people who've come to my retreats on relationships, who had that same pattern of being cheated on. In their case, it was different. Right. So who they were cheating was themselves, because they were selling themselves short, because they were doing something with their life that wasn't really what they came here to do, what they really wanted to do. They had settled for less in a relationship or whatever. And so they were cheating their real authentic selves. So it was showing up in the relationship. And as soon as they stop that, then the cheating patterns disappears.
So what do you tell people who are in relationships that's not getting or being fulfilled in the relationship, or something that's taking place in the relationship that they don't like?
Well, I mean, that's the first step, right? If we're approaching the relationship as what's going to make us happy, forget it, hang it up, right? Because that's the first mistake. You are going to make me happy.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Wait a minute. And how unfair to put that expectation, that heavy responsibility on somebody else. Your job is to make me happy. It's like, hang it up. It ain't going to work. And so
go ahead.
That's the first step. We have to realize that only we can make ourselves happy.
And I know we say that often. It's like a cliche, don't expect other people to make you happy. It's not their job. But let's go deeper into that. Because we always say that,
right,
and we move on. But let's take that a step further. So what do we mean by no one else can make you happy?
Well, that like there isn't anybody out there that's going to make us happy. There isn't anyone out there, and it's not their job to. Because relationships are great, and it's
Mhm.
great. They handle a lot of things. It's nice to have somebody to share life with, to share the ups and downs, to share family, intimacy, sex, to travel together with. It's great to have that, but that doesn't make us happy, because I think what makes us happy is beyond that. How many more examples do we need to see of people in this world who have celebrities, politicians, who have all the
Have everything, right?
all the
Yeah.
fame you could want, you could have anything, all the power you could want, and they're miserable. And one tweet, like, we don't have to even name the person. Like, one tweet sends them into a tailspin of reactivity and
Yep.
so thin skin, right? Their sense of self is so weak. And celebrities, I mean, how many celebrities do we know who get into problem with alcohol and drugs and who take their lives? So
Yeah.
Right.
so we know that there isn't anything out there external to us that can make us happy. Forget it.
So tell us what should they do? So I'm trying to dig deeper in here. I'm trying to get you to say, so you're happy now, right?
Right.
You're happy.
looks
Your
like it.
relationship is happy because you did what? What did you finally realize that you had to do?
For me, it's about self-acceptance and self-love and living on purpose, like figuring out who we are, what makes us do the things we do, what are our triggers, what are our patterns. That the more we know ourselves, right, it begins with self-awareness, right? Because
Mhm.
self-awareness opens the way for self-acceptance. Self-acceptance makes the way for self-love. And that's what it's all about, right? How can we expect, it's like another cliche, how can we expect
Right.
if we don't love ourselves? Like, really
That's
love
right.
ourselves.
Exactly.
And the only way to get to that level is to know yourself. Like, there's no way around it.
Yeah,
And
so I think you have to be honest with yourself, and I think that's part of the problem, us being honest with ourselves.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
owning up to our deficiencies and things of that nature. So
or the truth of when we say we
but the
love
truth
ourselves.
hurts, and the truth hurts when it comes from you, right? And you know your shortcomings, and you know what you need to work on, but you try to mask it with these other things that supposed to make you happy,
Yeah.
which does it. And that's where the problem comes in.
Exactly. And then we numb ourselves out, right? In all the
Yes.
Right.
infinite ways that we numb out, whether it's drugs or alcohol or food or sex or social
Absolutely.
media or gaming or workaholism or whatever it is, right? Anything that we're doing to run away from ourselves and from our feelings, it's like, it's not going to work. That stuff doesn't go away. And so that's why this book is part of a series of 3, which the title of the series is Calling All Heroes, because what we're talking about is not easy. Right?
Mhm.
It's
Exactly.
heroic. To have the courage to be willing to look at ourselves and sit down with ourselves and face our inner demons and look at our self-doubt and our triggers and our patterns, that it's sometimes even our relationship patterns, that sometimes feel like we're in the same boring movie.
Yep. Watching reruns. Yes.
It might be a different actor, a different co-lead, but it's the same boring movie. Same kind of crap coming up, same stuff. And so at some point we got to get real and look at ourselves and say, hey, wait a minute, there's one common denominator in all these relationships, in all these arguments, and it's right here. Why do I do what I do? Why do I seem to attract the same kind of person? Why do I get triggered by a certain person where somebody else wouldn't get triggered by that behavior? And it's work. It's heroic work, but it's so rewarding, because once we figure that stuff out, then we're free.
So tell us about the books, tell us about the series, and tell us what, even though you just told us a little bit, give us a little bit more of the self-discovery, the awakening.
Yeah. So this book, Awakening the Soul of Power, it's about personal empowerment. Right? Because I think most of us struggle in that area. We have a conflicted, ambivalent relationship with it. Part of us wants it, part of us is afraid of it. And I think what we fear, like the more that I work with people in this area of personal empowerment, I think what we fear is that if we really stepped into all of who we are, if we really owned our power, that other people wouldn't be able to handle it, and that we might end up rejected and alone. And who wants that? We also fear.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we fear that we might abuse it. And no wonder. Like, all we got to do is turn on the news or read the headlines any given day to witness at least one abuse of power. And
yeah, we see that all the time.
We've been conditioned to believe that power is a bad thing, that power is negative. With quotes like "power corrupts," and absolute power corrupts absolutely. What they didn't tell us about that court is that Lord Acton was speaking specifically about political power, not personal power. And so what happens when you add to that mix the fact that we've been conditioned to be afraid of the emotions, we hate conflict, we avoid confrontation. What happens when you put all that in together is that we end up giving away our innate, inherent power that nobody can give to us. Nobody can take it away. We are the only ones who can give it away. And the sad part, as you know, is that we give our power away for the lamest and saddest of reasons. Like we say yes, when inside we really feel no, for an illusion of security, to not rock the boat too much.
Absolutely.
We sell ourselves short. We stuff ourselves into smaller little packages for a false sense of acceptance and for morsels, crumbs of pseudo love. Because it's not even real love. Because if we're not presenting ourselves authentically, anything that we get in return cannot be authentic, right? They can just mirror what we're presenting ourselves with.
Or society makes you play small, like you said.
So
you're that person who shows that inner power, and you're speaking of and determining, and you're showing the world what you won't accept because you love yourself more, and then the world around you goes, well, wait a minute, you're being arrogant, or
you're being back in your box here.
Right. So then we, especially as children, right? So we learn this behavior early on. So then we don't speak up when, like you said, we don't say no when we really mean no. We say yes, right? We don't do the things that we really want to do because we're afraid of being accepted, or we're afraid of what will happen. And so we grow up learning all those things, and it's such a task to have to unlearn them. And then you go, wait a minute, the person I used to be, that was right, and now it's wrong. And like you said, it's definitely a hero's journey, because it takes a lot to, one, take the journey onto discovery, and two, to change the things that we don't like that we should change, and to empower ourselves to be okay. It's not okay to play small. We have to place big.
Right.
You know, we have to be who we are, stand up for who we are, and have the inner power to be ourselves. And so many people in relationships, as we were talking about before, they're not the authentic self. You meet this person, you fall in love with someone, and you find out they're someone totally different.
Yeah, because everyone's presenting themselves differently. They're not their true selves. So I'm trying to impress you. I'm trying to win you over. So I'm not even showing you who I really am.
And I think that's why a lot of relationships may fail, because we find out that the person that we thought we were in a relationship with, we're even ourselves, right?
Yep.
Exactly. So we're not truly being ourselves. And then when we want to show who we really are, we go, well, why did things change?
Amen, sister. Preach.
So, you know, what are you saying for people who are in relationships and not being themselves, not saying no when they want to say no, not feeling that innate power that's within them, they're not being their greater selves?
Yeah. And well, so that's what the message of the book is, that there is a way that we can step into our own power in a way that's not about hierarchy, that is not about control, about fear, about corruption or abusing. That there's a way that we can step into our power without pushing anybody down, stepping on them, putting our knee to their neck, in order for us to feel like we're above them and we're powerful. And so that's what the book takes the reader on the journey of how do we do that. And it begins, to go back to what we were saying before, with self-awareness. Like, we can't do anything about what we can't see.
Exactly.
So you started this self journey right around 30 years old, 30, 31, 32, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it took you 30 years to really realize, and you had already become successful, and you had done the things that society has said that made you a successful male, right?
That would make you complete.
Right. So you're fine. But you went on this journey at 33 years old. So before that, you were fine, but you still had that feeling on the inside, like, I need more. I need to have more. I mean, for most of us, the things aren't the things that you have aren't the things that make you happy, and you must realize that. And once you do, you find out that you're missing something. And that's what I took from your story. You were still missing something, whether you had the cars, the thing on the house, on the lake, and all the other stuff.
The success.
It does not matter if you're not truly happy inside.
It doesn't matter. None of it matters. None of it matters. Yeah. Money is not bad. It's not a bad thing.
No.
Oh, no, definitely not.
It buys a lot of comfort. It buys experiences. It can give us a sense of inner peace. because we don't have to be in fear of survival all the time. But we all know, it's like, I know millionaires who live in constant fear that they're not going to have enough. So it's a state of mind.
I'm glad you said that. Right. I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people relate money with happiness. Well, you have to be happy if you don't have money. You know, the saying, money doesn't buy you happiness. No, but it sure makes things a whole lot easier, right? It gives you that peace of mind. So taking away from the book, The Awakening, is not about the money. It's not about the material things, because those things are okay. It's nice to have them. It's nice to enjoy them. But what we have to realize is that that's not the only thing that we should be looking for, right?
Exactly.
So with your, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, nothing to be sorry about. We're having a great, I'm loving the back and forth. It's the answers within, right? All the answers to all our questions are within. And so we've got to, that's part of the journey, is like, how do we know who we are? Like, we don't have time here to dive deeply into what the ego mind is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important. I spent the whole probably first part of the book, I think not a third, maybe a quarter of the book, understanding that. Because if we want to have relationships that have a chance at working, if we want to have a sense of personal empowerment, if we want to have a life that is filled with meaning, with purpose, we've got to understand what that ego mind is and how it keeps us in a self-made prison of fear and limitation and self-doubt and all that kind of stuff. And so here's just a visual of what the ego is. If you imagine a baseball in the center of a stadium, that's what the ego is. Who we are is actually the stadium. And we've allowed this tiny, 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 tiny part of who we are to think that it is all of who we are. And
Exactly.
to make really important choices about our relationships, about what we do with our lives, from a very small and always fear-based perspective. So that's that process of self-awareness, is understanding who we are, what makes us do the things we do, so that we can let ourselves free from that self-made prison.
And then, I don't know what's wrong with my throat. Excuse me.
Get some water, baby.
So once we free ourselves from that prison, we're allowing ourselves to, let me get this right. You're saying once we free ourselves, we're allowing ourselves to bring other people in to our world that now will complete us. That now we're drawn to us the good relationships, the good desires, the good fulfillment. So how does the awakening of yourself, the changing of yourself, releasing yourself from the prison now open you up to all the things that you've wanted and now are going to be fulfilling?
Yeah. And I don't even know that I would phrase it in the way of like, anybody can complete us. I don't think anybody can complete us. I think we are whole and complete.
Oh, well, you know what? You're right. I didn't mean to say that.
Yeah.
Compliment us. You're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
You're right. Because I always say people don't complete us, they compliment us. Okay. So
Compliment, that's a great word. Who can compliment us? Somebody that we can hold hands with and share this amazing journey of life with. But nobody completes us. We don't need that.
Exactly.
Right.
We're already complete. You're right. Misspoken on the word.
And I know this is what you teach also, and what you coach, and I know you have to know this because you've been married for almost 3 decades, and so to be doing this kind of work and to helping other people and coaching other people to do this kind of relationship work, you've got to know that. Like, there's no way around that.
Nope.
To me, like that's the starting place. Like, only we can make ourselves happy. Anything else is great. It's added value.
So again, going back to helping people realize that the awakening of themselves, the journey of themselves, the inner work that they need to do, because so many people are saying, I'm not getting the relationship I want. I'm not finding the right husband, or, I'm in this relationship and I'm not satisfied. So my point is, I'm trying to get people to understand that the journey is within. The happiness is within. So help people realize that once they find that journey, once they take that journey and they are awakened to the power within them, how does that change their outer world?
Oh my God, it changes everything. It's like once we step out of the little reality of the ego, then we step into that universe of the stadium, which is, it even has like different rules of that's words that we don't really have the words to explain how life works. Then, like, we'll use words like miracles or magic.
Right. Exactly.
But that's the kind of reality that we step into. where things happen in our lives that we wouldn't, like our little minds could never even imagine possible. And it all begins with that journey within. It really does. There's no way around it. And when we're talking about fulfillment too, like this is what I think. There isn't anybody out there in this universe or any other universe for that matter that has the same genetics, the same qualities, the same set of experiences that make each one of us unique. If we don't give expression to that fully, ain't nobody else going to do it.
Absolutely.
And for me, that's where the fulfillment lies, is when we give full expression to that unique human potential. Because there's nobody else like us. And so in expressing that fully, that's where our fulfillment and maybe even our happiness comes from. And then the rest of it is it's the gravy. Right? It's great.
Yeah, everything kind of complements and come together as a whole. I love your analogy of the whole baseball being the ego stadium. And then the stadium. Because you imagine, just listeners, I want you to grasp this. I want you to imagine your ego being a baseball, and you get beyond your ego issues and outside of yourself, and you open up and you look around. It's like sitting in the sitting on the mound in a baseball stadium, and you look around, and this is all you, and you have so much to tap into. You got a lot of work to do. Just imagine how deep that is. That is just amazing.
So when people take the book, when they're reading the book, does it take them on this journey?
Yes.
And it shows them how to go deeper and how to awaken the power within them. What can they expect when they're reading this book?
Yes. And I know that we live in such an ADD society, and there's so many distractions that we can do on any given day or night. But so I designed the book to be doable.
Okay.
Right? Because it's heroic work, right? So looking within is going to be work. So I'm trying to make the journey as fun and doable as possible. So I did really short chapters. There's no rush to get through it, right? Do a chapter a week. Important thing is do the homework, right? Every chapter has not a lot of homework, but it's two or three questions that are all designed to apply the teachings to our lives, so that they don't stay at the level of information. We don't need more information. We've got information.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Information overload right now.
What we need is transformation, right?
Yes.
And that comes from integrating, from taking on those teachings and really applying them and discovering who we are. So for example, let's go back to the power question. Most of us tend to associate power, people who have power, with people who have money, people who are famous,
Right.
people high up in some kind of hierarchy, whether it's the corporate ladder or some institution.
Right.
But the thing about all those expressions of power, that they're outside of us, they're external. And so because of that, they're here today, gone tomorrow. They're fickle. Whereas if you think about this, what I call soulful power or inner power, spiritual power, it's inside each one of us. Nobody can give that to us. Nobody can take it away. Like we were saying before, we're the only ones who give it away. And whereas worldly power or ego power is, it always has an agenda. It's always trying to get something for itself. And it's always blowing itself up to seem bigger than it is. And again, we have great recent examples of political leaders who exemplify that. So think about the spiritual power, the soulful power. It's humble. It doesn't need to prove anything to anybody. And so think of a Gandhi, or again, Gandalf, if you're into the Lord of the Rings, in their simple monastic robe, their sandal feet. You would never know how much power they hold until it's needed, and then get out of the way. Gandhi brought the British Empire to its knees when it was at its highest point in terms of global reach, without ever landing a punch or shooting a single gun. That's power.
Two things that were really, really good points that you touched on were, one, don't be in a hurry to read the book. We're also, we pick up a book, and how quick
can we get through it?
Right. How quick can we get through this?
Yep.
How can we get from front to back to say, oh, I've read 2,000 books, right? And so that was the first thing. The second thing is that you said you have homework at the end of each chapter, which is vital, because doesn't, like you said, it doesn't make sense to have knowledge if we're not applying it. What's the whole purpose? If I have a ton of knowledge and I'm not applying it to any part of my life to change it, why am I constantly trying to obtain more knowledge? We have the knowledge. So those were two very good key points. Don't be in a rush. Today's society is, how quick can I make my transformation?
Right.
So I'm broke today. I want to be rich tomorrow. Right? I have an unhappy relationship. I want everything to change tomorrow.
Right.
I'm 10 pounds overweight. Tomorrow I want to be skinny, right? We're always in a hurry, not realizing that the true self has to be expressed in time. We have to undo all the layers that we've done. So you touching on those two very key points was very vital in the transformation of lives, of lives all around the world, because we have to do it one day at a time, one life at a time. So for anyone who takes in your book and reads it, make sure you take his advice and don't be in a hurry.
Yep.
And do the homework. Apply it. Apply what Christian is telling you, and how can I apply this in my life that it changes me? It gives me the transformation that I'm looking for, and it enables me to be powerful. So when the homework, when people are doing it, have you ever had someone say, well, this is too hard? Like or just in writing the book and just in living.
Yeah, because they just have so much to deal with. Their ego may be a softball or something a little bit bigger, right? so they got a lot to deal with there. So
right. People who have big egos may not
right. Yeah. So has anyone ever written back to you or said anything like, hey, I can't get past this chapter. This doesn't make any sense to me?
Yeah, not that in particular, but I know it's hard work. That's why it's heroic.
Right.
Right.
It's a lot easier to kind of coast through life and just reacting to other people and to other people's expectations and demands and to what the conditioning that we were talking about. But happiness doesn't lie that route. It just isn't there. And so as far as I'm concerned, doing this inner work, there's no way around it if we really want to be happy and fulfilled. And it is so infinitely worthwhile. It's like, like I was saying before, I know self-doubt. I know self-hatred even. Like my entire adolescence was one long depression with suicidal fantasies. And as I try to struggle with, who I am and the religion in which I was raised. And so like, I know this stuff works because flash forward to today, no matter what happens in my life, no matter the details, relationship works out or it doesn't, a project succeeds or it fails, in quotes, never, ever, ever do I question my sense of self. Like I know who I am. And that is unshakable no matter what. And that is priceless. That's
one thing I found out, that failure really isn't failure. It just didn't work for you at that particular time, but it doesn't diminish your self-worth.
Right.
And that's what we have to understand. People associate with, that didn't work out, so there's something wrong with me. So then you go further and further in because of these different things that come up. But no, failure is okay. It's a process in life. You learn from it, you move on.
So how would someone be able to determine ego from awakening? Right? Because sometimes we think, oh, I'm good. I have this. As you said, in politicalness, right? Yeah. In the political arena, sometimes people may think he knows who he is. He's powerful.
He's strong.
Right. So how do we determine ego taking over and is actually the true power within?
Yeah, I mean, this is brilliant questions, and the book really dives into that.
Oh, good.
And and we don't really have time to dive into what the ego is, but here's a quick description of it. It's a part of the mind that makes sense of sensory information. It filters it, it synthesizes it, it can reach into the past, project into the future, and somehow weaves all of that into a coherent sense of self, personality. Like, this is Christian, that's Tina Marie, that's Jason. So it's personality. Ego means literally in Latin means I. So it's that sense of I-ness. So how do we know whether the voice inside of our heads, because the ego is also that harsh inner judge, like all that negative self-talk, the things we say to ourselves, we would never say to anybody else. The ego is so cruel and so harsh, mostly with ourselves. And so how do we know who's that voice inside of our heads? But here are a couple of simple ways. The ego, I kid around, went to law school, right? So whenever we find ourselves pulling big words from here, big concepts from there, we're building a case to prove that we're right, hang it up. That's the ego proving that it's right. Mm-hmm. It has this need to be really strong, need to be right. But like, I think it's a Course in Miracles that says to you, would you rather be right or happy? Because that doesn't get us anywhere, even if we are right. Mm-hmm. So what? It doesn't get us happiness. And so whenever we find that, the ego is also kind of fickle. and grandiose. So this week it'll say, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to do with the rest of my life that's going to bring about world peace, solve world hunger, and make me a multi-gazillionaire. But the ego is also kind of lazy, and it's kind of in the comfort zone. So, and we know growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone.
No.
So, flash forward 3 months, and now it's like, all right, the project's taking work and it's not coming together. So it's not going, no. This is not what I'm going to do. This isn't working. This is what I'm going to do. That's going to make me a gazillionaire. So whereas if we have to get underneath that crazy monkey mind, the ego is what the Buddhists call the monkey mind, because we jump from thought to thought in the same way that a monkey goes from branch to branch. And so it's that crazy inner conversation, inner dialogue that drives us crazy, even before our feet hit the floor when we wake up in the morning. It's already gone, and it has something to say about everyone and everything, every single moment of the day until we fall asleep, exhausted, because it exhausts us. If we're able to fall asleep, because sometimes it keeps us going through the night. We've all been there. You can't sleep. And so what we got to do to find out the voice of the stadium, like the voice of the authentic self, the soul, whatever you want to call it, our own piece of sacred real estate that's inside each and every one of us. That voice is that still, quiet voice inside that the sacred texts tell us about, right? But the thing is, we got to learn to listen to it. We got to get underneath that crazy monologue inside of our heads so that we can listen, because its language is quiet and very simple. And it'll say things like, yep, do this, I wouldn't go there. When do we get into trouble? When we overwrite it and we go there anyway. Every time, right? So that's the process, right? Like, so whatever practice we can do, whether it's meditation, spending time alone in nature, prayer, so that we can drop into the authentic self and listen to those messages that will never, ever lead us astray, ever.
So what about people who are not religious? So
this isn't even about religion.
All right.
Okay. It's and that was a big breakthrough for me. That's why I threw the baby out with the baptismal water, because I was confusing religion and spirituality.
Okay. Exactly. And so that's why I brought that up, because so many people do. They don't understand that the spiritual journey is a self journey. Yeah. It doesn't have, it can, but it doesn't have to have a religion attached to it. That's absolutely. Right. What I've also found is, I don't know about you, so have you found that people who have awakened, maybe not even all of their power, maybe some potential of it, that they have a different calmness about themselves?
Oh my God, for sure.
They don't like something. It doesn't. They don't just jump off the handle or something that, like, they're not very reactive. They're not instantly reactive.
Right, and that's a great word too, because the ego is all about reactivity. The ego is always reacting. You do this to me, I'm going to do it right back to you. You get me, I'm going to get you sometimes, and I get you preemptively first, just in case.
Because I know you're going to try to get me. Yep.
right. And the ego walks around like this. We're like in full armor, waiting for the next attack, anticipating the next attack, and we think this is powerful. It's like, wait a minute, look at this. Like, this is not powerful. This is prison. Like, always waiting for the next attack. Right. This is prison. You want to talk power? Like, do this, right? Open up those arms, because what that attitude is saying is that, hey, life, come at me. Whatever you throw at me, I got this, because I know who I am. And it's sort of like, I'm from the tropics. And so the analogy of the eye of the storm is very real for me, right? It's like,
yes.
Right there.
That's what we learn to be in the world, right? We allow all the drama, all the judgments, all the expectations, all the chaos of life, the uncertainty, whether it's loss of a job or the financial situation or a global pandemic, it's around us. We don't have to take it on. We choose when we show up and engage.
So you just you're just redefining the I of yourself, your ego. You really just, like I said, opening it up and just really taking a look at it. It's almost like being in your, the storm, in a tropical storm. You're in the center and you're just kind of looking around and seeing all the vastness and stuff and say, okay, look, I'm going to control this. I can control this. And it is a calmness when you sit there and you say, I'm in control of all this. I don't have to live in fear. I don't have to live in doubt. I don't have to live in shame. Any of those things. You
Right.
choose and you stay in control.
I choose, and I can even let people have their stuff. I can even let other people have their emotions. I don't have to react. I can maintain my center, my equanimity, clear boundaries, like knowing what works for me and what doesn't work for me, knowing what's right and what's wrong for me, right? And if somebody's getting in my face, it's like I can have clear boundaries. And then so this is not about becoming a doormat. Like we're talking about a journey of
Exactly.
empowerment, but we do it at choice without reacting to other people, and without reacting to our unhealed past and stuff that happened to us when we were kids, and
Mhm.
misunderstandings that we took them from childhood. That somebody said something to us the wrong way because they were overwhelmed, or because they didn't know any better, because their parents didn't know any better, and so we took it on. Right? We took it on. It's like, oh my God, I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not whatever enough. And because that, or maybe our parents got divorced, and those little minds that didn't know any better, we
Right.
didn't understand what was going on with each other's lives. We didn't know how they approach relationships. We don't know how their parents before them taught them
Right.
about relationships. We didn't know about their brain biochemistry. Was there substance abuse? We didn't know any of that. We took it on. It's like, oh my God, mommy didn't love me, daddy didn't love me. How could they leave?
Mhm.
Right? And then we personalize it, and we make conclusions about it. Well, what does it mean about me that they don't love me? What's wrong with me? None of it true. None of it real. Misunderstandings of young minds that didn't know any better. And the sad part is that we've been living with those misunderstandings, with those lies, all of our lives, and they've been having an impact on all of our relationships.
And I just was just thinking about the word power, as you mentioned before, how people get in positions of what they assume is power, right? So therefore,
And-
we have to be that nastiness. We have to be that ego that says, I'm greater than you, right? How the word of power in society and what we've attached to that word is totally different than what we mean in this book.
Yes, yes. And I love that you say nastiness, because it is.
Mhm.
It is. People of power
Nasty.
really, yeah.
And I think that shows that they're strong. Or they say, this is what happened to me, and this is how I'm going to treat the people below me now, being nasty. Because this is what it meant, because my dad did this, or my mom did this, or whomever, but now I'm in control. I'm the boss now.
Right.
And that's how
right.
people...
It's such a misunderstanding that I only feel powerful if I can be over somebody else, right? So that's the difference between
Wonderful.
worldly power, which is power over, versus spiritual power, soulful power, which is power with. If I know who I am, if I'm in my power, I'm not threatened by you being in your power. It's like I celebrate you being in your power. It's like, yeah, come on, we need all of us in our real, authentic power, not in that other illusion of power, which is what the world thinks it is, which it isn't.
Exactly. Making sure that we define and know the difference between the two types of power. We don't have to be over anyone or put any, as you said before, put anyone down or step on anyone, right?
Right. And Nelson Mandela, what a great example of somebody in their spiritual power, in their soulful power. And that man was able to say, after 20-something years in prison, that if he hadn't found a way to forgive in his heart the people who imprisoned him, that he would still be in jail. Which talk about power.
Right.
It's like the state of mind, it's in here. It's in our hearts. It's not like you could be in your power in a prison cell.
And as you also mentioned, it doesn't mean we're going to be a doormat. I mean, discovery of yourself and getting the power doesn't mean that we're just allowing people to walk over us. So have you had that where people say, well, you're too kind, you're too nice, and people are walking over you. Do you get that misconception?
Not about me personally, because
I like that, Christian. He's like,
no,
not
I don't
Christian's like, wait, no, not me.
People who know me, people who do my work, know that I'm incredibly kind, I'm incredibly loving, and I don't take crap from anyone. I know who I am, right? And I know I'm very clear about what works for me and what doesn't work for me, and I've learned how to communicate that stuff in a way that works.
I was just going to say, so how do you communicate that's no, that's not going to work for me?
Yeah, okay. There's some of it is just like simple communication stuff. Like every time we say you, Like, you did this.
Mm-hmm.
You always do that. Hang it up, right? That other ego that doesn't even know it's an ego, all it can do is defend
Right.
and attack, right? Because it feels attacked. So
Exactly.
explain or defend or attack back. That's the only thing that it can do. And especially when we use words like you always or you never, forget it. Hang it up. They might be looking you in the eye, but that little mind is going back in time to that one time in 2001 where it didn't do that. And so then it gets to say, well, that's not true. I don't always do that. And it's technically true,
Mm-hmm.
but it completely misses the point, right? So we learn how to own our experience, right? And how to own our emotions, because nobody can make us feel anything if that wound isn't already here, right? And so we've got to own that we are responsible for our experience and for our emotions. And so when we learn how to phrase things like, when you do this, I feel.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. That
Mhm.
formula is really good because it doesn't attack the other person.
Right.
Yet it's able to communicate like, hey, can we do this a different way?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
This isn't working for me because when you do this, I feel, and I don't want to feel this way. Can we figure out a different way to do this?
Yep. And that's what we work with our
Wonderful,
clients on.
wonderful.
Yeah. This is how I
Absolutely.
feel when this happens. So,
Expressing the emotion from you instead
Right.
of trying to put the blame on someone else.
right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I have one quick question before we get out of here. You were confident before, right? When you were successful, you felt like you were a pretty confident individual.
Not inside.
Not inside, but but you express confidence as you went along. What's the difference between the Christian before and the Christian now? Can you explain the difference?
Yeah, even when I was successful in the eyes of the world, deep inside, I didn't feel good about myself. Like there was so much, like many of us, I was running away from myself. Like I had gotten to some degree of self-acceptance because one of the blessings, like if we look for a silver lining, there's always one.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the blessings for me in having been gay, even though like it was such a difficult struggle to come to that level of self-acceptance, is that it forced me to ask those really hard questions. Who am I? And what am I here for? And where am I going? That every human being has eventually to ask. But I had to ask them at a very young age, because for me, it was a matter of survival.
Okay.
Right.
And so I had attained a level of self-acceptance, but at quite a cost, because I had rejected a huge part of myself, which was my spirituality. So I was walking around not whole, just like many people try to reject or suppress their sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Many others have also tried to reject or suppress their spirituality.
Right.
And they're just part of who we are. They're just inherent parts of being human. And so once I realized, that I became whole, like I no longer did I need to repress, deny, reject any part of who I am. And the result of that was like, oh my God, the inner peace, the self-acceptance,
Yes.
the freedom, the sense of personal empowerment. Like no matter what happens in my life, I'm okay. I know I'm going to be good. Like that is priceless.
It's an undescribable
It
feeling,
sounds like
right?
it, yeah, that's
When we get to that place of full acceptance
Yep.
and understand the inner peace within, it's like undescribable.
Everyone should strive for that. I mean, it's hard work. Because who you are, and this is who you've been your whole entire life. So you might have to turn yourself upside down a little bit here, but the work is well worth it.
It's priceless.
Priceless.
So would you recommend, I know we often talk about self-discovery, right? And it begins with us. But for couples that are married, is this something that you would recommend? Because it can turn your whole world upside down, right? You can, so would you recommend that couples read the book separately and do on the journey together, or that just one person should do it and discover? So how would you recommend for couples that are married and they feel as though something is missing? What would you recommend? Do the book together, separate?
Beautiful question. Ideally, of course, together, because of sometimes we just grow in different directions, and that's okay. That's one level of doing relationships. It's like, okay, well, I'm aware now that it's not their job to make me happy. I know that I'm okay, and that I'm going to devote my energy to my own spiritual growth. they don't have to be into that. But there's enough about the relationship that works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sex is good. We live well together. We travel well together. We co-parent well together, whatever that is, right? There's enough of it that works well that, okay, I'm willing to do this. Ideally, like for me, that wouldn't be enough. For me, and when I'm in a relationship, I want somebody who's also willing to do the work, somebody who's equally committed to their own growth and to the growth of each other, and so that we can grow together. And if we use the relationships consciously as the vehicle for growth, right? There's so many things that a relationship can speed up that process of healing and awakening and remembering. Like, because sometimes I think the Dalai Lama has it easy being celibate. It's one thing, like even when I was in my spiritual community in the ashram, like stuff that I thought I was done with, when I got in my next relationship, it was like, oops, there it is again.
Where did he go wrong? Yeah.
Why did that happen? Right.
But if we're doing the relationship as you guys do as partnership, so rather than blaming, it's like, wait a minute, why?
Right.
Why am I having that response? Why is that behavior eliciting that response in me? What am I feeling? If we're both doing that work together, then it really speeds up the process, because we're mirroring for each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sounds wonderful. Sounds wonderful.
So tell us about the series. You said you had a series of books. I know you have the Awakening the Soul of Power, but what other books do you have, or how's the series work?
The second one is, I'm about halfway through, maybe 2/3. It's on relationships, because I think that's the area where most of us tend to give away our power.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great question too. Like, right there, on this journey of personal empowerment, and that journey of becoming aware, it's like, in what areas of life do I tend to give my power away? Is it with authority figures, like parental figures, ministers, bosses, teachers, that kind of thing? Is it with family and friends, or is it with romantic, intimate relationships? It's good to know the patterns, and I find that most of us tend to give our power away in those romantic, intimate, sexual relationships. So I'm devoting a whole book to those, about how to do them consciously.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And then that journey plans to take you to your third series book, which is going to be on
life purpose.
All right.
Stepping into conscious leadership.
Wonderful.
So we've done the work over here. We've cleared ourselves. We've now empowered ourselves. What are we going to do about that, right? What are we going to do in the world?
See, now you've done everything, right? So you talked about the soul of the power, and then you talk about relationships. Now you talk about going out with a purpose and leadership. Now you can lead, because you took care of your relationships and you took care of yourself. So you become an awesome leader that way.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I see how that works. Okay.
All right, so tell us one more time about the name of the book, where they can find it, and a little bit about you.
The book is available wherever books are sold. So you can order it at your local bookstore if you want to support them. You can get it on Amazon. In terms of reaching me, probably the best way is my website, which is soulfulpower.com. And from there, they can access my social media. And for anybody of your audience who goes to soulfulpower.com and gets on my email list, and we know how easy it is to just click unsubscribe if it doesn't work for you down the road. But anybody who gets on my email list, will send them a sample chapter on the book, which talks about what it means to live a heroic life in the 21st century. We'll send them some of those power practices that we were talking about earlier. And we'll send them a recorded teaching and guided meditation about trust, which I created last year in the middle of the worst of the pandemic, to help us get to that place of trust, rather than being stuck in fear and chaos.
Absolutely.
And uncertainty.
That is fantastic, Christian. Thank you so much. And listeners, I'm sure you guys need to take advantage of that.
Oh, yeah, you do.
So tell us, spell your website for us again. So tell us and then spell it. Mm-hmm.
Soulfulpower.com. Soulful, SOUL, F as in Frank, UL, power, POWER.com.
All right, guys.
Do yourself a favor, give yourself the ultimate gift, the new you. That's what you need to do.
And sometimes free isn't free, right? So it's free to you, but you're free to take the opportunity to change, to go deeper, to find your purpose and your meaning, and to get to that peace, calm that we all want, right? And better in our relationships and ourselves. Because once we're better, we can then experience better relationships.
That's right. And that's what we teach. If you want a better relationship, become the better version of yourself. And this is a good way to start by digging in and empowering yourself with the tools and the understanding to become the you that you were designed to be at birth.
Changing relationships, changing the way we look at them, changing the way they are, and understanding that we can be happy in relationships and we can be happy with ourselves. So I think that wraps up another episode.
I think so. I would want to say, Christian, thank you so much for coming on and giving us a wealth of information. We wish you so much success with the book, which you already have. We already know.
Success in life and just success in general.
Yes,
all right.
yes.
So as always, go ahead.
I was going to say thank you so much for having me, and thank you for doing your work. In your willingness to step up and even have this podcast, to do the coaching that you do with couples. You're really making a difference in the world, and you're helping so many people's lives to be impacted. So thank you so much for that.
And we couldn't do it without people like you, with our wonderful guests.
Yes.
So thank you again, Christian. Thank you so much.
So hold on just for 1 second.
So as always, we're in it to win it.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Lovin' Beyond the I Do podcast. Head over to iTunes to subscribe and leave a review. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Legendary Relationship, or visit our website at legendaryrelationship.com. Till next time, remember to make every day count.